Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shalom, giving all praises, glory and honor to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Akakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwatim. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I just wanted to go through this topic that, about how we have our own high holy days, because we're living in a time where there's a good amount of information in regards to understanding who you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are, right? Especially, and that also includes, Israelite foreigners that are maybe scattered amongst the other different nations, right? And the truth is understanding who you are and essentially your nationality, and a lot of the I don't want to say high holy days, but a lot of the different customs and culture, different so-called holidays that were practiced, that you were practicing, before you understood your heritage, is realizing that those holidays, so to speak, were not really part of your customs. Those were just different examples of paying homage to different gods, right? And a lot of those gods go back to ancient Babylon, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and so on and so forth. And a lot of these things are just amalgamated and revamped, recycled, and repolished into this nation known as Babylon the Great, also known as America, because it basically encapsulates a lot of the different practices that existed prior to its existence, prior to 1776, right? So, so this is just a quick, Lord's will, quick this will be a quick edifying lesson. Let me start here because this weekend, a lot of our people, they go to church and they think that this particular time, it refers to Easter Sunday, when the Lord basically was resurrected and basically was crucified, right? Because you're not going to find Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the Bible, right? So let me start here, right? This is Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 here, and it says, Hear the word of the Lord. Hear ye the word of which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Learn not the ways of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So when they see the signs in the heaven, different the sun, the moon, the stars, right? When they see these different signs, they get dismayed at them. And what they do is they attach those different ordinances in the heavens, right? They attach those ordinances in regard to different gods, and the scriptures say that the nations, the gods of the other nations are idols, but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai made the heavens, right? So this is verse 3 here, and it says, For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest and work the hands of a workman with an axe, right? So now you start to see that a lot of these different customs, so for example, today is also known as so-called Easter, right? And people, they dress up, they have they put on their rabbit ears. Like, I'll say it like this: you don't need the scriptures to understand that rabbits don't lay eggs. That's number one. The second thing is, you don't need the scriptures to understand you don't get 3 days from Friday, right? So from Friday to Sunday, right? So a lot of this, of what we experience in today, like this weekend, for example, it is just examples of the different gods that were paid homage to back in the ancient times. So for today, it specifically goes back to a god named Ishtar, right? These particular gods refer to, because around this time of year you see a lot of rabbits, and what they associate with rabbits is that because rabbits have a lot of they copulate a lot around this time of year, so they have sex a lot, so there's a lot of fertility worship that refers to around this time of year, or associating with Easter and so on and so forth, right? But those customs are vain. Those customs are not truly our customs, because we have our own high holy days, right? So um, let me go here to Sirach 33. This is Sirach chapter 33, verse 8. And it says, by the knowledge of the Lord, they were distinguished, and he altered seasons and feasts. Some of them he made high days and hallowed them, and some of them he made ordinary days, right? So there are some days, we have that are hallowed, right? And then there are some days that are just ordinary, ordinary days, right? So we have so-called, well, we have high holy days, but a lot of these holidays, I should say it like that, the holidays of this world, don't actually bring you to your heritage. So for example, this weekend you have Easter. During the winter time, the winter solstice, you have so-called Christmas. Our people celebrate, pretty much anything that has nothing to do with their culture, right? And our people don't understand the importance of knowing your culture, because the culture is really what keeps you connected back to Yahweh Bashem El Shai, and connected to your history, our forefathers, remembering those things and what our forefathers and different foremothers had done. The scriptures say that there are things that are written aforetime are written for our learning. So we remember, because we're still in the time of the Passover right now, right? We remember the harsh, bitter, uncomfortable situation when we were in ancient Egypt, the rigorous labor, you know what I'm saying, the slavery, right? And remembering the ways, the way we were treated, right? Because it was a rigorous type of captivity, right? That's what the bitter herbs actually strongly represent, right? The blood on the doorpost, because the death angel was passing over, and to have that blood was an example of exemption. So remembering those different stories, right, with the things that the Lord did to ancient Egypt, and also remembering the way the Lord judged the ancient Egyptians, right? So it brings you, that's the purpose of the high holy days. The purpose of the high holy days is to bring our people back to remembrance of things that the Lord did for them, within those particular events within our history and within our culture. It's all about remembrance. It's not about, yes, there's an aspect of celebration, for Passover specifically. It's a time of reflection and mourning, getting rid of the leaven out of your house. But at the same time, it's all about remembrance, and remembrance in identity, because our people don't understand the value in knowing their identity. They treat it as something, they treat it as a washcloth. They treat it as old shoes. They don't see the importance of it, because when you look at these other nations, and this is me speaking from experience, actually speaking to, a lot of so-called Persians, they walk more uprightly, knowing their history and their culture, their heritage. They know, they conduct themselves with a certain element of pride, knowing knowing who they descend from. But our people, as the scriptures say, an ox knoweth his owner, and an ass his master's crib. Our people don't consider. Our people they're as lost sheep that have forgotten their resting place. They don't actually consider that, this is our heritage and our people. And frankly, there's a lot of our people that don't actually care. That's another aspect of it too, because a lot of our people do know, as I think Yahweh Shai said this, I know you are the seed of Abraham, but my word has no place in you. So there's an aspect of, well, you have a lot of people who do know, but frankly, they don't actually care, right? They essentially, as the scriptures say, they have loathed the Lord's law. So loathe basically refers to a basically a strong dislike for something. They loathe it. They have a strong distaste for this, right? And the Lord's commandments are not grievous, right? So this is, it all ties together. The commandments, the laws, statutes, and commandments, our high holy days, it brings us into remembrance. Is essentially it's what clothes you, right? But you are people, one of the reasons they get taken by all these kinds of judgments, is because they don't have, proper clothing. They're not clothed. They take on a covering, but not the covering of the Lord's Spirit, right? So that they may add sin to sin, to roughly paraphrase this thing that it says that in Isaiah, right? So let me go up and read this a little bit here. I'm not going to read all of it. I kind of just want to, emphasize this, that we have our own high holy days, right? And Easter is not one of them. And that's one thing I just want to touch on the end as well. This is Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1, and it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord, which I shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. It says 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day it is the Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. Ye shall do no works therein. It is a Sabbath unto the Lord in all your dwellings. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons." Right? So Sabbath, you work 6 days. The seventh day is a day, of rest. Of course, we know, we keep it to the best of our ability, because we understand we're in a situation, we're in captivity and we're subject to payments, right? We understand that, we just, if, you're not going to call in every time every time it's a Sabbath, so to speak, right? It's not expedient to do that, right? Those scriptures say don't be righteous over much, right? So let me just continue on here in Leviticus 23, verse where was I? Verse 4. And it says, "These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month, at even, it is the Lord's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread." So unleavened food, that, bread that doesn't actually have any leavening agents in it, right? So it says, on the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days, and the seventh day is a holy convocation. So it's like it starts and it's on a Sabbath, and then at the end it'll also fall on a Sabbath, right? So you shall do no servile work therein, right? So so that pretty much so when you continue going through the rest of the chapter, it goes into the different feasts, right? The only two you'll find that are not within this chapter, you would find the Purim, right, during the time of our forefathers Mordecai and our foremother Esther, right? That's found in the book of Esther, right? And the last one is the Feast of Dedication, which you will find in Maccabees, the 4th chapter, right? When the heathens basically defied the temple and it was essentially rededicated, during the time of Mattathias and his sons, Judas Maccabees, and their brothers and his brothers, and so on and so forth, right? So also known as Hanukkah, right? So, those are the different other high holy days that we also acknowledge and remember, because that's all part of our culture. Christmas, Easter, Corpus Christi, New Year's Day, all these different other so-called holidays, Victoria Day, Canada Day, 4th of July, all these different days are not part of our culture. All these different days don't actually bring you into because why? It's not consecrated, and it doesn't bring you even close to remembrance the things the Lord actually even did for us, right? Of course, the Passover is more of a time of, self-reflection and so on and so forth. But at the same time, it brings you to remembrance of what the Lord did during back in those times, right? How he judged those Egyptians, right? Those different high holy days don't do that, right? And that's another problem with our people. They're very in a slave-like mindset, because when you keep the high holy days, you understand you have more of a righteous um rulership to sort of mentality, because you remember the things that the different heathens did to us. And that's one of the consequences or the downfalls of our people, because they don't study the way like the heathens study us. Like in the time of the book, um when you read the book of Judith, and the captain at that time, Holofernes, basically he was one of the captains that was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar. They were studying us. They were studying our history and our lineage, going all the way back to Abraham, right? What we did, how we cried unto the Lord when we were in Egypt, when we went into the land during the time of Joshua. They knew all those different events. But when it comes to our people, they don't know these things. Okay, there is one more I just wanted to touch on. Just bear with me 1 second. Just to clear up any confusion, because the word Easter is really, it's written of in the Bible, but you need more understanding in regards to what's going on there. Okay, this is Acts chapter 12. I just wanted to clear this up because, just for more understanding in regards to our customs, high holy days, because the word Easter is found in the book of Acts, but I just wanted to clear this up, what this actually means. This is Acts chapter 12, I'll start off verse 1, but the point is really in 4, and it says, "Now about the time the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread." And it says, "And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions," which are essentially a squads of 4 soldiers, to keep him, intended after Easter to bring him forth to the people, right? So just for clarification and understanding, because, people, somebody might say, oh, Easter is in the Bible, Okay, so this is, so let's go to the Greek. It says, Pascha. Let's get it.
Strong's G 3957. Pascha.
Right. So it's really Pasach, right? It really just refers to Passover. So that's really what that word that's there actually means, right? So just to get more clarity and understanding, right? Because people might see this and they might trip up, right? That's what the apostles always push, going into the meaning of different words, going into the Greek, the ancient Hebrew, right? So you can essentially become more like a wise virgin and understand these things. And basically, it makes your lamp, basically it keeps you trimmed, right? Keeps your lamp trimmed, right? So that's pretty much the point I kind of just wanted to hit in regards to the, let me hit this as well, last precept, I swear. Where was that? That's Jeremiah, the 6th chapter. Jeremiah 6 verse 16, and it says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths, and where is the good way, and walk therein, and you shall find rest for your souls, right? So there's no rest when it comes to following the different ways of these different heathens, because these different ways, as the scriptures say, the wages of sin is death. They don't actually lead you towards back to the Lord and remembering the things that the Lord did for us, right? And it says here, continuing on, and you shall find rest for your souls, but they said we will not walk therein, right? So it's basically, going back to the old way of our true nationality, our true language, knowing our customs, our culture, because that is what actually makes it makes you understanding these things make you more whole, right? These things are important because our people don't see it as they see it as a light thing for heritage. Your heritage is not merely just bun and cheese and plantain chips and beef patties and tamales and all this kind of stuff, man. You have a rich heritage where the Lord made us to be a nation of kings and priests, right? So um that's pretty much the point. Lord's Words lesson was just quick, straight, and edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim El Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.